The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. There's a new city council getting ready to take office in January that includes 3 new members from the borough of the Bronx. 2 of those members join us tonight to talk about their plans for their districts, how they see their new roles, possibilities for a new council speaker, and a number of other topical issues. It's a good chance for you to speak with these council members elect. Call in with questions or comments at 718-960-7241. You can also email them to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. But for here and now, congratulations on their election, and welcome to Bronx Talk to the newest council members, the council member-elect in the 11th District, which includes the Bronx neighborhoods of, let's get it right, Kingsbridge, Riverdale, Woodlawn, Norwood, parts of Bedford Park, Wakefield, and Bronx Park East. Andrew Cohen, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Gary.
And congratulations. And from the 16th Council District that includes the Bronx neighborhoods of the West Bronx, Morrisania, parts of the South Bronx, Highbridge, and Melrose, former Assembly member, although she still is an Assembly member for at least a month, I guess, and now Council Member-elect Vanessa Gibson. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Gary.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's start with you, Council Member-elect. What's the first thing you're going to work on, aside from getting yourself settled and everything? Once you say, okay, now what do I do? What are you going to do?
Well, thank you for having me on the show tonight. And first, I do want to just express my sincere thoughts and prayers to all of the victims and families that were devastated by the unfortunate incident with the Metro North this past weekend. And I'm just so excited. This is a great opportunity for me to be the new voice of the 16th Council District. Obviously, I'm right in the middle of transition. I am retiring from the Assembly after 4 years, and I'm moving on to a new role in the City Council. So the first order of business for me is really to continue to have a conversation with constituents, to have meet and greets throughout the communities of Melrose, of Concourse, of Highbridge and Morris Heights, and make sure the residents know that I am in the office to be their elected official, their voice in City Hall, and to really expand on what I believe is my platform for the 16th Council District.
What kinds of things do you want to hear from them? I mean, obviously, you know, you'd love to hear, gee, everything's going great, right. You know, take the next 4 years off. But what are the kinds of things that will make you say, this is something I can work on, this is something I can help you with? Give me and us, of course, an idea about
Well,
that.
the 16th District includes much of my Assembly District, and many of the residents and tenant leaders I know very well. The relationships I have built, I plan to expand on that. The number one issue that residents always talk about is jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. The borough faces one of the highest unemployment rates in the Bronx, and young people, seniors, adults, they all need jobs. They want affordability in housing. They want access to quality health care. They want economic development projects in the Bronx that reflect the diversity and the character of our neighborhoods. They want to make sure we have access to quality education and so many other issues, services for youth and seniors, and I believe that jobs is the number one.
We'll get to that, and actually, in some ways, Councilmember-elect Cohen has a mini advantage because he has a couple of malls coming in his district, which we can talk about as well. And I do want to talk about jobs, but before we even get to that, why? You know, we asked you while you were on the campaign trail a number of times, but now let's get to it. What do you expect to be able to do here as a council member that you couldn't or didn't do as an Assembly member?
Well, I think the greatest asset I bring to the city council is my experience as a state legislator, as someone who's worked on many state issues important to the district I serve. And I really believe that being in the council has an advantage of providing critical resources that I was not able to get in the assembly, supporting community groups, supporting parks and schools and housing, and being able to support many of our small businesses and our community-based organizations is what I plan to do.
A little bit more hands-on, a little closer to the
Absolutely.
people as opposed to being in Albany to legislate on rules
Yes,
and things. All right.
absolutely.
I had an idea that's what you were going to say. And for you, Mr. Cohen, what for you, the first thing, now you don't have certainly the experience that Ms. Gibson has in the assembly. What are you going to do after things get settled and you really say, okay, here I go, this is my job?
Well, there really is a lot of organizing to hit the ground running. Just finding office space, interviewing staff. So I'm going through all of that right now. But I really look for things at the council that have a direct impact on the district. So whether it's parks or education, looking for areas where I have an impact on policy citywide, but also that really plays itself out in the district. And I think parks in particular is a great example of that.
Mm-hmm. What do you do when you say, okay, parks is an example of that?
There's a master plan redevelopment of Van Cortlandt Park. There's a number of park capital projects that, and the city council provides primary capital funding for the parks department. So I think that's just an opportunity where there's a real connection between the city government and the district.
I'm going to weigh in or ask you to weigh in right now on speaking of parks. One of the most controversial topics out there is the Putnam Trail. Now, it's been discussed. What do you expect to happen next, and what are you going to push for as regards the Putnam Trail?
Well, I'm hoping the issue can be examined with, fresh eyes. There'll be a new administration. I don't know if they'll, in terms of the administration in the Bronx, how that's going to play itself out. But I'd like to see that issue re-examined. I have to believe that there is a solution to this that could bring people together as opposed to divide people. And
really?
Yes, I do believe that. I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to come up with a solution.
Did you believe one side or the other, or did you like the solutions you heard as the stone dust trail or another trail?
I prefer stone dust. Compressed crushed stone is the surface that I think would be the most desirable. But I believe there has to be a solution that can accommodate bikers and runners. I think that really is the core of the dispute, is just a use issue like any other kind of park dispute among users. And I think there's probably, I'm certain, in fact, that there is a compromise that will provide reasonable access to cyclists and reasonable access to runners.
All right, all the journalists in the Northwest Bronx are writing that down. That's what Andy Cohen said. And for you, Ms. Gibson, let's go back to the idea of jobs. As I said, he's got a couple of malls that are coming up. Now, maybe these aren't the greatest jobs, and retail jobs may not be the ones that'll float people's economies for the rest of their lives, but they do give people jobs, and there are probably many people in your district that would like that kind of thing. What do you do? What can you do as a council member to bring jobs to the district?
Making sure that I'm a part of the conversation with any development, whether it's in housing or a mall or possibly a soccer stadium in the Bronx. Making
Which we
sure
talked
that,
about when you were on
absolutely,
our debate. That's
yes,
right.
making sure that I'm a part of the conversation because people want concrete substance. They want jobs, they want training, we want apprenticeship programs. We recognize that for many instances in the Bronx, we are always given minimum wage jobs. And so the reality is we want prevailing wage, we want union wage jobs, we want sustainable jobs that can build a lifetime of careers in the Bronx.
This is, to me, a central issue because there are many neighborhoods that are wrestling with all kinds of different projects, and I guess the fundamental question that I hear from viewers and in my discussions with folks like you, how do we get communities to self-determinate? How can we get communities to have input so that it doesn't come down to between a partnership between a developer, a deal maybe with a council member, and then all of a sudden the communities find out, wow, we've got something that we didn't really like?
I think you really have to make sure that communities are a part of the conversation. I mean, being the council member, I am their voice in City Hall. But if there's any project that potentially has the chance to come to the 16th District, we need to make sure that residents' voices are heard. Their concerns are addressed. Community benefits agreements, project labor agreements, tangible agreements with developers that provide critical services and resources and jobs for the residents that have, an impact in that neighborhood.
Did you think that the Kingsbridge Armory CBA, which is being, lauded as a model, is that one that can float in other projects, or is that one that will scare away the developers that you'd like so badly to invest in?
I absolutely think that can be a model. I think it could be an example of how developers work with community residents and work with advocates. I think it can be a growing conversation of what it means to really have an effective partnership in the Bronx. Obviously, we look at some of the challenges we face in the Bronx. We want to make sure that local residents are not impacted. We want to make sure small businesses are not disrupted in any way. So I think the Kingsbridge Ice Center is a great model for many other developers to see how we're working in the Bronx, how we're working together, the partnerships, and the fact that at the end of the day, we can have a plan that everyone can be a part of and be proud of.
I wonder if your colleague is sitting there saying, gee, I've got this big Montefiore Hospital facility being proposed for Riverdale Avenue. Your colleagues in government have all said this is out of context, we don't want it here. Certainly residents and the community board are saying what to do with it. You don't want to make Montefiore Hospital unhappy. On the other hand, one would think you're going to have to stand up for you and for what the people, it seems, would like to see in the district.
Well, I think what's in Riverdale's in best interest on Riverdale Avenue is ultimately in Montefiore's best interest. Where I look at it as one district. Montefiore is a constituent, but I have many constituents who live nearby this proposed building. And I think that Riverdale, Montefiore coming into a neighborhood and building a project that nobody wants, that people are going to be very angry about, I don't think that makes sense as a business model. I don't think that's the way Montefiore wants to do business. I think Montefiore wants to be a good partner and a good neighbor. So I suspect ultimately there will be a solution to that problem that will bring people together and a solution that people can live with and be happy
Let's say
about.
it's a showdown. You would stand up and say, you know what? I think I'm going to represent what the people want in the face of that.
I met with the president of Montefiore the other day, and we said that this project does not make sense in this site.
Let's talk a little bit about the campaigning that just happened. A lot of it was directed at Mayor Bloomberg, and folks like yourselves and even the mayoral candidates all said, you know what, Mayor Bloomberg isn't the kind of mayor we want. Now we've got a mayor that I would think would seize a little more eye to eye with you folks and others in the city council. Is the council in danger then of becoming a rubber stamp agency? That all of a sudden here's a guy, well, we like him, and in a way become afraid to oppose the mayor if he does things that you don't like? In other words, how do you anticipate the positioning of this new mayor?
Well, vis-a-vis the council, I mean, the council seems to be energized with a lot of new people, young people who I think are going to want to make their mark and have an impact on this city. So I don't think that there's any danger at all of being a rubber stamp. I think that, it's a checks and balances system that, we have a legislature that I think is going to be looking to do its job with great enthusiasm and energy. So I don't think that's going to be a problem at all.
I'm assuming you're including yourself in that. Did you want to respond to that?
I just think it's an exciting time. I mean, for the first time in 20 years, we have a Democratic mayor that for many of us sees eye to eye on issues of relevance, of priority, like, the issues we face in the Bronx. So while I understand a lot of the concern, I think that we can work hand in hand. And the council, at times when we need to be critical of the mayor, we have to be the voice of the people of New York City. And I think more often than not, we will be working together than we will have differences.
It's going to be about collaboration. I think that's going to be.
You both attended the forum I moderated about potential council speakers. Do you have a favorite? I mean, because you folks in attendance, in a way, were much more important or as important as the people of the Bronx who attended because you're going to have a vote. Any thoughts?
I do not have a favorite. Most of the candidates who are publicly running for speaker, I do like. Many of them I have personal relationships with. I struggle because it's hard to figure out who is the best person to be the speaker, who's the person that can get the council members together in partnership, who is the one that can network the best and be the representative of the members of the council. So I struggle like many of my colleagues do, but I do not have a favorite.
Is there any whispering out there of no thoughts on that?
There are always loud whispers.
I do want to ask a serious question, though. There was an allegation that came out that Melissa Mark Viverito accepted in-kind donation from a lobbyist to assist her speaker candidacy. In your mind, is that an integrity issue that says, you know what, she may be a good candidate in other ways, but we don't need the leader of the council to be in that position?
Well, I wouldn't use that one minor discretion as a way to judge her ability to be the speaker. Not knowing the full, facts of the case, I would say maybe it could have been a judgment call where there was an error made on her part or the part of her campaign. I really don't know, but I would not use that as just one factor to discredit her ability to be the speaker.
Your thoughts, number one, on the speaker, and then we can even ask you the same question on that.
I think I'm fortunate as not becoming in as a freshman. I'm not burdened by having the relationships that the other council members have in some ways. They're all I've met with.
It's either a burden or an advantage. I don't know.
I think it could go both ways, but I'm very open to. I've met with all of the public candidates or anybody who's asked to meet with me about the speaker's race, and not having those relationships, I think, has made me very open to any of the candidates. Mm-hmm.
So at this moment, you don't have somebody in your mind that you think is better or.
I definitely am not at that point yet. I have a meeting with a speaker candidate tomorrow, maybe another one on Wednesday. I mean, it's an ongoing process.
What do you want to hear? And I'll ask you the same question. What do you want to hear from any one of them that would make you say, this is the person that I think should be the Speaker of the City Council?
Well, I've signed on to the reform package, but essentially I want to see a speaker that's going to empower the members to do their job. At a lot of these forums, I'm interested in the candidate's perspective on the issues, but I hope that a lot of the issues that you ask questions about are ultimately, it's not the speaker's policy, but it's the body's policy, that we reach a consensus on how we want to act as a legislature all together, as opposed to having a speaker, dictate policy.
I too support a majority of the reforms proposed. I want to see a speaker that is not going to allow the Bronx to be shortchanged. I want a speaker that will allow, members of the council to have the ability to pick who my staff will be if I'm a committee chair, and give me some oversight over my committee and really have a fruitful and productive part of being a council member and a council chair. There's a lot of talk about participatory budgeting. I also think, whoever the speaker is has to provide some level of support for council members that are interested in participating, because I do think it's a good concept, but it's a lot of work involved, and I don't know that every member of the council has the resources to participate.
You mentioned the Bronx. There are 3 council members from the Bronx. I mean, I can list them. It's Jimmy Vacca, Annabelle Palmer, and Melissa Mark Viverito. Mm-hmm. So does that give them a leg up? I'm being a nasty reporter here. Does that give them a leg up in your mind?
No, I don't think it gives them a leg up. No, I just think that
I'm trying, folks. What can I tell you?
It pushes the Bronx further to be a priority to the speaker, and I think that's a good advantage.
Let's go to the telephone, and Anthony from Norwood is calling us. Hello, Anthony. How are you?
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Do we have Anthony?
This question
okay.
has to do with what you mentioned a moment ago, Gary. I want to switch the topic, maybe talk about council law as opposed to council speaker.
What is the
question? I'd like to hear from both candidates how they would handle the campaign finance situation that took place during the summer. I'll only use Mr. Cohen's race as an example. There were several examples. With Mr. Cohen's particular race, he knows as well as I do that Jobs for New York wound up contributing to maybe even 3 times the amount of money that were contributed into the whole race.
Got the question.
So I was wondering.
Got it. Thank you. So, Mr. Cohen, thank you, Anthony. What do you think? I mean, was this kind of an unfair way of handling a race? Even though it benefited you, there's no doubt about that. Is it unfair to have this kind of political action committee make that kind of contribution?
Well, I think it goes to a fault in the campaign finance laws that the Supreme Court and citizens United is broken the campaign finance program. We have a great program here in New York City. I participated in it. I found it to be user-friendly. I was successful in navigating it, and the program itself was key to my campaign. But having unlimited outside groups able to spend whatever they want is, to say the least, problematic.
Even though you benefited from it.
Well, I benefited this time in the sense that they spent the money and supported my campaign. But next in 4 years, they may feel differently. And
so you think it's problematic. Your thoughts on the political action committees?
So I don't think I had that challenge. My biggest challenge with CFB was trying to understand all of the rules. Coming from Albany and not having a campaign finance system, but making sure that I follow the rules and regulations, I raise money within the limits. It was really challenging. A lot of constituents that may have wanted to give more could not because they were doing business with the city. But I felt it was a great way for all of my constituents to feel a part of my campaign. $10 was matchable, and it gave everyone a chance to be a part of the campaign.
Simplify the system, it sounds like, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. ABCs of CFB.
That's cute. Just a couple of weeks ago, John Liu was here, and he obviously lost campaign funding, and it basically gutted his campaign, and he probably would agree with everything you're saying. It is Bob from Riverdale. Hi, Bob. How are you? Do we have Bob?
Gary?
Yes, how are you, sir?
My good friends, council members.
Okay.
As for a choice of speaker, Gary, we'll see who gets what committee chairs and how people vote.
Okay.
Now, having Mr. Cohen in the council is almost like having Bob Press in the council.
I don't know if he accepts
and
that.
He might agree with you because we think very much alike.
Oh, okay.
But I will make sure he doesn't wander from what he's supposed to be doing. As you know, Gary.
Bob, what is your question for our
my question is, when County Leader Carl Hasty of the Bronx Democratic Party tells you how to vote for the Speaker,
okay,
what are you going to say to him?
Okay, so in other words, if you have, it's an interesting question. If you have a candidate that you say in your mind is one candidate, and yet the county organization is going another way, would you be independent?
Yeah, well, I think the premise of the question is flawed. I don't expect Assemblyman Hasty to tell me who I'm voting for Speaker.
Okay.
I'm working closely with my Bronx colleagues. I'm voting with Vanessa, not with Carl. I mean, we're going to work together to come up with a candidate that is the best for the Bronx.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Your response is similar?
I agree, and I don't think, the county leader has asked any individual council members, not to my knowledge, he has never asked me to support a particular person. I'm really interested in the best candidate who's really going to prioritize the Bronx, because I feel that Andy and I coming in as new members, we have a lot of responsibility. There's a great challenge in our community, and we really have to deliver. And in my district, I want to make sure I deliver jobs. That's what everyone has been telling me. And so I want the Speaker candidate to make sure that the Bronx knows, how important it is to prioritize.
One of the things that brings jobs, and we've had this dialogue in a half a dozen different ways, is the idea of subsidies for developers. Obviously, the Fresh Direct proposal is on the table. The incoming mayor says he doesn't like these kinds of things. If you get a situation where you have a developer who's going to get subsidies, what's your thought on that, whether you want to address the Fresh Direct concept specifically, or you want to look at it globally? What's your thought on this idea of government subsidies for developers?
Well, we have provided subsidies for as long as I can remember, and it's a way to stimulate growth, to stimulate a market, to provide development in an area in our state. I support subsidies, but I want to make sure that it's right development for the community. The community, at least in which I have served, has usually been shortchanged. With any public project that has a public benefit, you have to be a good neighbor to the residents in that local district who are going to be impacted. And so I'm really big on community benefits agreements, on partnerships, because they provide real concrete agreements that developers have to agree to in exchange for those subsidies, which are taxpayer dollars anyway. So we have to make sure tenants and residents are heard.
I want to ask you, we're almost out of time. I want to ask you a follow-up to something you mentioned in the debate, and I want to ask the council members something about the whole EULA process. You had mentioned in the debate that we held here that in order to select community board members, you would develop a working group in your office. That's still on the table? You expect to do that?
Absolutely. I have so many working groups I'm establishing. I don't know what to do with myself. But my job is really to make sure that residents know that I am listening. I'm getting their feedback. I'm listening to their concerns, their views, and I'm taking everything into consideration.
Okay. The ULURP question is about environmental impact statements. It came up in the Fresh Direct proposal. They said, they didn't do a new one for 20 years. You're well familiar with what's going on in your district with the water filtration EIS, that they put out stuff that just wasn't true. What needs to be done with this process so that if there's an environmental impact statement, number one, we know when we're getting it, and number two, it actually has some meaning and some teeth, because they put these things out and then they just go and do what the heck they want anyway.
Well, I think that having a council member who's active and making on top of these projects. I mean, a ULURP project cannot go. The ultimate stop is at the city council. So you really want to make sure that that you're following the projects in your district, that you know what's going on with them, that you know the status of them, and if you're not satisfied with the status of whether it's an environmental impact statement or any other part of the project that is problematic, I mean, you have leverage at that point to try to make sure that the project is put back on track.
Final question for each of you. We'll start with you, Mr. Cohen. What in 4 years do you want people to say about Andrew Cohen and what he did in 4 years when presumably you run for office again?
I want people to say that I was really actively involved in what was going on in the community and providing real leadership. Whether it's, there are so many issues. I've been sort of startled by how
big it is. Huh?
But also that the day after the election, it really started. People, I literally got a phone call at home 2 weekends ago, someone calling about a constituent service issue called my house. So I just want people to know that, to be able to say that my council member is really involved in my community and that he's a real resource.
And if they do want to get to you, is there a way to do that officially now, or we're still waiting? Or
you can still contact me through the website, through the campaign.
The campaign website? Okay. Same question for you. What do you want people to say in 4 years?
They still like me.
That, vote for you again or something?
That I was an effective leader, that I was consistent on the message that I started with when I first ran for office, and that we delivered in the district and we had true reform and true progress for the people. We uplifted, we enriched the lives of so many families.
Got
and we
some
really
jobs,
made a difference.
I guess.
We got jobs and we made a difference.
Councilmember-elect Vanessa Gibson, good luck. Councilmember-elect Andrew Cohen, good luck. And we certainly hope to reach out and have you back for discussions as things come up in your districts and in the council.
Anytime. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Folks, if you have further questions or comments on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com or post them on our Facebook page, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Also, please become a fan of Bronx Talk on Facebook. You can see the archives at bronxnet.org, and you check out the Bronx Talk link on the bottom right-hand navigation bar. Now, next week coming up, it is Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. Then on the 16th, a blueprint for the future. What should we see from city government when it comes to community groups and not-for-profits and agencies in the Bronx? Should be an important show. That's Monday, December 16th. All our shows are important, right? Thanks to producer Jane Folloro, director Shirley Arietta, coordinator of the studio is Dina Valentine. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Thank you.
Live with a human for a while, and you get to know a few things. Like, I know she does strange tricks for no treats. But the one thing I will never for the life of me know is how she gets so tiny and inside that box. Natalie, how do you get so tiny?
All right, give me a spot. You know my motto, safety first.
They could be dangerous. I think we should call animal control.
Animal control?
To be safe.
Don't worry.
Just...
I got this. It's a new motto.